My name is Krystina Alabado. I'm an actor here in New York City, and I am reporting from my apartment, my 636 square foot, one bedroom apartment that I share with my husband, who's also an actor, as we are riding out the COVID-19 issue. So we are here quarantined, staying safe. Um, I know a lot of people reach out from Arizona asking how it is here, and it sort of feels normal. Like I don't feel it, thank God. Um, and so I'm just sort of hunkering down. It is kind of weird to not have ridden the subway for a month. And also not have my Broadway show running. But other than that, it feels very normal. As I'm rambling, please leave questions for me and I'll answer all of them that come in. Um, anyway, so I'm a Broadway actor. I've been in three Broadway shows. I've been in Green Day's American Idiot in 2011. I was in the original Broadway cast of American Psycho, which was on Broadway in 2016. And I currently am Gretchen Wieners in Mean Girls on Broadway. And by currently, I mean up until we got shut down, and we'll be starting again whenever Broadway comes back. So I have been living here in New York for the last 12 years. I would call myself a New Yorker now, though my heart forever is in Arizona. I was born in Mesa, Arizona, raised in Chandler. I graduated from Hamilton High School in 2007. And I miss Arizona every second of the day. I feel like a New Yorker now, technically, but again, like I said, my heart's always in Arizona. Um, I I started my career really young. I mean, not my career, my love of singing started, as I said before, with my dad, who is a Brazilian jazz musician. He's played all over the Valley. You may have seen him. He plays bossa nova jazz in like a duo, sometimes with six people. We've played at the Care Cultural Center. We've played at the Borgata when it was the Borgata. Is it still the Borgata? I'm not sure. And in like coffee shops and places all over the Valley. And I started singing with him when I was about 8. So that's sort of where my love of singing came from. And then once I got into junior high, I went to Rhodes Junior High in Mesa. I realized that musicals and choir was like right up my alley. So I started performing in all those shows. I started high school at Dobson High School in Mesa. I did my first couple of years there, did all the musicals at Dobson, choir, band, everything. And then my family moved to Chandler. So I moved to Hamilton High School where I graduated and did a bunch of theater there. And throughout that, as I got older, I started doing community theater. So I did like Valley Youth Theater, I did Grease Paint Youth Theater, I did Tempe Little Theater, and bounced around. Anytime a show felt right for me, I would do the shows there. So that's sort of where my theater started. My theater love started in Arizona. I would see all the shows at Gamage. I was fortunate enough when I first started doing this as a career, the job that got me out of Arizona and out of ASU, I went to Arizona State for a brief year, my freshman year. I was studying musical theater and acting, and I got plucked out to do the first national tour of Spring Awakening, which came through Gamage in 2008, I think. So it was cool. My first big Broadway job, I got to perform at Gamage, which was so cool for me because I grew up watching all of the shows at Gamage. I would get the cheap seats like way up top, and I would see every single show that came through. And I think that's why I love Gamage so much, and I'm so connected to you all and to Gamage, is because that's where it all started for me. That's where I wanted to do it, where I thought I could do it, and I was inspired to do it. And, that was just little me in Arizona. So I was really excited that I got to perform there with Spring Awakening. I also performed at Gamage in 2012 in Green Day's American Idiot when it came through. And then again in 2013, when I performed as the mistress in Evita, for anybody that saw that production. So it's been really special for me to be able to perform at Gamage, and it makes my heart happy because that's my like childhood self kind of living my dreams, and it was really special to do that. And I've had people from Arizona, my family obviously, and I'm really close to the people at Gamage, come in and out of my life and see all my shows, and I just have always felt so supported by the entire Arizona community, and just being from there. So I love Arizona. So that's my intro. And I'm gonna start taking, yeah, please send any questions you have about New York, about me, about my husband, about what I've done in my career, and let's just chat. Have you learned anything new about yourself during this time being in quarantine? Um, yes, I am a busybody. I like am a really hard worker. I think being an actor, it sort of makes you that way just because I'm always fighting for my next job, no matter how far along I get in my career, I'm always fighting for the next job. So it's this never ending, like, what can I do now? What can I do? Like, what work can I create? How can I further everything and continue furthering things when there's nothing? So in between shows and stuff. So having this time, it's almost like I realized I was set up better than I thought to have the time off. Because like I said, sometimes I could have a year between jobs, a year between shows. And so I'm kind of used to the downtime. What I'm not used to though is not having things to audition for, to things to prep for, working on. So I've sort of, the first week of the quarantine, I sort of went, okay, what am I going to do to keep myself creative, to keep myself fulfilled, and to keep myself happy because my show is closed. And my show brings me so much happiness. So I guess what I learned about myself is that I have the ability to create a lot of work for myself. I've been teaching a lot of young people. I do career coaching and voice coaching, acting coaching and voice lessons. And so I've kind of filled myself with teaching at this time. It's really amazing, like what we have, the ability to use with Zoom and with the internet. So I didn't realize how much I loved teaching until I've been doing it, I've been doing it all day, every day. Anybody that wants lessons or career coaching, that's really important to me. So it's been cool. I kind of realized that I can create a lot more for myself than I even ever thought, even though that's kind of all I do. I also learned that I'm not that good of a cook. My husband does most of the cooking. He's also an actor, and I always try to help sous chef, but I'm not as patient as he is. But I'm learning. I'm getting better. It's fun. Which Broadway character that you've played are you most similar to? That's a great question. So Gretchen, whoever's seen Mean Girls, I know Mean Girls was supposed to be coming to Gamage, and I know it got rescheduled, and it will be coming, and I know everybody in it, and you're going to absolutely love it. And I can't wait for you to all see it. I wish I could come do Gretchen for the Gamage stint, but I am going to be doing it on Broadway still. So I can't come to Arizona to do Gretchen, but I didn't realize, I think, how much like Gretchen I am. I think everybody is, for anyone that knows the movie or the musical. Gretchen is really anxious and wants everybody to like her. And I think all of us can pull from that, especially actors and artists. I think, every audition that I go on, I'm trying to get people to accept me and cast me and think that I'm good enough. And I think one of the reasons I was really successful in my audition for Gretchen was because I felt those things, because I was like, I want Tina Fey to think I'm funny. I want Casey Nicholaw to think I'm a good actor, like all these things. And I was like, I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this for the first time ever, which was pretty cool, because I didn't know that I could use those feelings in a productive way as an actor. So it was actually pretty cool to get to use that. And then I kind of use it every night. I sing the song "What's Wrong with Me," and it's all about wanting everyone to love you, So that's been interesting, and I feel like I'm very much like Gretchen in that way. I also connect a lot to my older characters when I was younger, like the American Idiot, punky and just kind of like misfits. Not that I ever was a misfit, but there's something about, in high school, I kind of felt like a misfit sometimes. So let's see, what was the first Broadway show you saw? I came to New York for the first time when I was 17, and I saw The Drowsy Chaperone, which was actually choreographed by the director of Mean Girls, Casey Nicholaw, which I think was kind of a cool full circle thing. Do you ever find yourself using Mean Girls lingo in your everyday life? All the time. And every once in a while, I catch myself saying something that's, oh, that's pretty fetch. And I'm like, wait, fetch is not a real word. Fetch is just a Gretchen word. What is it like being married to a fellow actor? I love being married to another actor. My husband, Bob Lenzi, Robert Lenzi, he was in South Pacific on Broadway. He was in Tuck Everlasting on Broadway. And it's pretty amazing to be married to an actor, especially the actor that I'm married to, who is incredibly supportive. And we I have found that it's been wonderful to be married to him because, I think people sometimes don't realize how strange our life is, the schedule of our life, how we procure our work, the gaps in our work. It's just a very different lifestyle. It can be quite complicated at times, but it can also be the most and obviously is the most rewarding career choice I've ever made. But the downtime is probably the hardest thing about what we do, because we have to sort of fill our time when we don't have work with things that are furthering us and still fulfilling us as much as when we have shows. So being married to an actor is really great because I feel like we understand that in each other, and we really, we support each other in those times. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, he's the greatest. I love it. And I love watching him succeed. And when I succeed, it's like he has. So it's just this really beautiful, like, fluid relationship where we're able to be there for each other. Let's see. How were you discovered? You mentioned being plucked from Arizona for a show in New York. Yeah. So again, like I said, I graduated from Hamilton, and at that age, at 17, I was super fiery, and I was like, I was very, very motivated. And I was very much like, I'm going to go to ASU, but I'm going to try as hard as I can to get a show as quickly as possible because I believe that I should be working. But I had the wherewithal that I didn't want to move to New York without an education. So I was like, I'm going to go to ASU for as long as it takes for me to like do this. And I actually went to an open call for Spring Awakening, which was the show that I left ASU for. And it was in Boston. I had booked a ticket to go to Boston to audition for Summer Stock. Summer Stock is when you do shows that are just in the summertime at all these different theaters. And they rejected my application, and I had already booked the flight. And then a friend of mine told me later that I was like, what am I going to do with this flight? And she was like, there are open auditions for Spring Awakening that same day. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Like, this is meant to be. And that was my dream show. Spring Awakening was my dream show because I had always had a folkier, rockier pop voice. And I felt like I fit in perfectly with that show. And so when I saw that there was an open call and it was on the same day that I had booked my flight in the same city, I was like, something about this feels really right. So I did fly to Boston and audition. And I got called back, and I ended up booking it, which was just the craziest thing that has ever happened to me still. Let's see. Who else? Let's see. If you and Bob could be in a show together, what show would you both be in? That's a really hard question to answer, Alexis. So Bob, my husband, his career has sort of taken him more on the classical side of musicals, maybe not so classical. He did South Pacific, Tech Everlasting, and now he's actually in Tina Turner, the musical on Broadway. I think if we were in the same show, it's hard because I'm sort of like the rockier thing, but I'll have to ask him. I would love to be in a show with Bob. We've sung together one time. It's on YouTube, actually. We did a Broadway couples Valentine's concert where all the Broadway couples did a song together, and we did a duet of La Vie en Rose, which was our song that we danced to at our wedding, and it was really, really special. So that's up somewhere on YouTube. Let's see, what's your all-time favorite Broadway show? Gosh, that's so hard. It's funny because I was in it. I am still obsessed with Spring Awakening. That really was my favorite show then, and even now, 12 years later, the score of that show, it does the same thing it did for me before I was in it. You know what I mean? So that was always like really, really, really special to me, that score. But right now, recently I saw Hadestown, which if you haven't listened to that score and you're bored, and go just listen to it from start to finish. It is the most beautiful music. It fills your soul, and seeing the production was just like unreal. So that's probably my favorite show like right now. But high up on there for me was In the Heights. That was like so huge for me. I wanted to be in that show. I love Hamilton, and I'm always constantly auditioning for it. So that one is always close to my heart too. Yeah, I love everything that I see. It's very rare that I see a show that I'm like, I don't like that. I totally appreciate the work that goes into everything. I always like to say that a Broadway show, being a Broadway show, and then even more so being on tour is like a little miracle. So much goes into these shows behind the scenes for years before you ever see them at Gamage. So I kind of love everything I see. I just see the work in it, and it's always so inspiring to me. What are the similarities and differences between performing in a show that is touring the country and a show in New York on Broadway? So I, obviously the biggest obvious ones is that I'm traveling or I'm here in New York at home. What's interesting about touring is I toured at the beginning when I first started. So again, I was 18 when I did my first tour. And then my last tour, I think I was 24. So 18 to 24, kind of in and out of being on the road. Being on the road is, I could not have asked for a better way to, oh, cool. Someone shared the link for my, nice. You guys are so good on here. What was I talking about? Oh, I was talking about touring. Sorry, I'm distracted by like the coolness happening on the sidebar. So the first section of my career was this touring thing, and it was the best way for me to start because I got to see the country. I got to perform in all these different houses. I think the biggest difference between Broadway and the tour is that you're doing the show in a different theater every week, every couple of weeks, depending on how you move around. With Spring Awakening and all the tours I went to in general, it was pretty much 1 week sit downs, with the exception of big cities like LA. We did 6 weeks. Toronto, we did 6 weeks. Other cities like that, San Francisco. But for the most part, we were just hopping around. So the biggest difference is kind of reacclimating to a different theater space every week, but doing the same show. So our spacing and blocking never changes. They basically build each show from Broadway to fit the road and to fit basically any house and all the houses that they'll be touching. So when you tour, you start by, on Tuesday when you get to the new city, or Wednesday, you start with a sound check to understand the acoustics of each different theater. Gamage has really specific acoustics compared to this theater, compared to that theater. So you sort of reacclimate yourself to understanding the space. And sound-wise, that's where we feel it the most when we're on tour, because visually everything around you looks the same. The audience looks different, yes, and the seats, but the actual parameters of the stage on stage are the same. Backstage is different, of course, and then the biggest thing for me is on tour is sound, because every theater is so different. Whereas obviously on Broadway, we're in the same theater doing the same thing every single night. My hair looks crazy. Also, this is mirrored, so I feel like I'm so confused when I'm touching what side of my face I am. Anyway, and so the that's the biggest difference, I think, is that, and then also just not being home. You get used to what can I make in a microwave, and what can I, how can I change up my living experience in a hotel? Though I will say in the last probably 5 years, so when I started Avita, it had changed because a lot of people started Airbnb-ing and staying in other homes. And so it kind of helped on Avita. I was able to have like a kitchen in a couple of cities, which was awesome, and really, really special. So I like touring and Broadway. Right now I like Broadway because I get to be with my husband and not leave my home, which I didn't really have the same connection to that when I was younger because I didn't have a husband or an apartment. So now I miss my home more when I'm on the road. Though the road always has a special place for me because it's where I started. And, it lets me go to places like Gamage, which make me so happy. Let's see. What was the audition process like for Spring Awakening? Being that it was your big break into national touring, I'd imagine it was quite memorable. Yeah, the audition process was definitely different for me. At that age, I had no perspective, right? The only auditions I had ever been on were for VYT and for my school shows. I had never done any sort of professional audition ever. And since it was an open call, I basically got to the place that it was at in Boston, and I was in line at 5 a.m. because I wanted to make sure I got a slot. And I sat there in the snow, and this Arizona girl, I didn't have a proper coat. So I was like in 5 sweatshirts, like trying to stay warm. And basically that process was I did my own song when I finally got let in. The audition started at 10. So I waited outside for 5 hours. And then I did my audition, and then I got called back the next day for a couple of characters. So the next day I went back and I auditioned with material from the show. And then from there, I flew back home to Arizona, and then I got a final callback where I was flown to New York, and I worked with the director and the music director and saw the show for the first time, and then got home. I was actually doing Urinetown at ASU at the time of all these callbacks. It was so weird for me because I was having to do, I was doing Urinetown and loving it at the School of Music and the theater school at ASU, but then I was juggling auditioning. And then when I got back, I was in tech for Urinetown and I got the call that I booked the job. And I freaked out. I mean, it was like the goal for the end of college happening right when college started. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And I'm leaving and I'm going to live my dreams and I'm going to move to New York. And it was just really, really special and scary. Let's see. Okay. Thank you, Robbie. That's so nice. Let's see. You mentioned vocal coaching and career coaching. What is one piece of advice you'd share with aspiring actors? So yes, I do a lot of career coaching as an actor. I like to, I've learned a lot over 12 years of doing this. Obviously a lot of trial by error and also a lot of, learning by doing. And so I like to share what I can, especially with young people and young people trying to start in the business. Me and my friend Desi Oakley, who I think Desi, she was on the Waitress tour. She played Jenna, and I'm pretty sure Waitress came through Gamage when she was Jenna. I can't know that for certain, but Desi Oakley is like my best friend, and we were on Avita together. And we started this business called Pop Rock Broadway, where we're helping young people access their pop rock voice for this new contemporary style, like Hadestown, like Spring Awakening, like In the Heights. There's a lot more pop singing happening right now. And it's important for people and students and young people coming into this to be comfortable singing pop music in order to book on Broadway now. And so we started this business, and a lot of what we do there is help young people on their way to doing this for a living. And we talk a lot in career coaching about the 3 things that it takes sort of to be a successful actor. One, it's like 1 part talent, 1 part business. So I am the CEO of Krystina, Alabado Incorporated. So it's talent, business. And then the third one is mental health and stamina mentally, because again, it's really hard to explain the challenges of the career. It's basically that we're constantly, dealing with rejection. Again, I'm leading in a Broadway musical on Broadway. My picture is everywhere. Everything is going great, but I've had probably 100 auditions in the last year to try to book my next job, and 100 zeros, 100 no's. And so you have to be able to handle that, which some people really can and some people can't. I don't even know if you can handle it until you live it. And I learned a lot, at the beginning of this career. I took it really hard every time I got no. And I still do. And there are still parts that I don't get that my heart wanted so badly. And it's hard for me to let go, but you start to learn. And the advice I give to my students is that it's not about you. It's about if you perfectly fit into the mold and to what they need in that moment, in that show, and right place, right time, right role, and how important it is to allow yourself to accept that your talent and hard work is enough, as long as you're putting the proper work into it. So I always give that advice that you have to really know that you are enough. And a lot of people are going to tell you you're not, and you are. And that you have to hold on to the fact that you are. And sometimes it can take forever for that to fit perfectly, but that it will, but you have to hang on to that. And, for me, I always also try to help my students understand and know that we can set up goals for ourselves, right? I can say, I want to be a series regular on a TV show. Let's say that's my next goal, which it sort of is. I'm not giving myself a date or a cutoff time for when that could happen. And also the goal is to get that. And if I do everything I possibly can, if I work my butt off, if I take TV and film classes, if I push my agents, if I look for auditions, if I do everything I can, then if for some reason it doesn't happen, it just wasn't meant to be. And I can say I did everything I could and move along happily from that, just because our business is so difficult to predict. So that's that. And then I always say to young people, foot on the gas pedal, and you cannot let it up. You cannot let it up even for a second, or you'll miss it. I feel like I have been tired for 12 years because it's just a constant battle, push, what's next, what's happening, who can I meet, where can I go, what classes can I take, all types of things. So I just say push, push, push. How do you calm nerves before auditions and before shows? Not for the already nervous Gretchen. So for me, it's weird. The nerves go away. My nerves come when I'm auditioning, right? Because I'm, like I said, trying to get that next job. Uh, the the nerves for the show, definitely my first couple of shows, because I was like, am I going to remember what I'm doing? Am I going to remember my lines? Am I going to remember what I'm wearing next? And also my feet are killing me because I wear a lot of heels as Gretchen, and that's part of my issue is that my feet always hurt. And so combating nerves, I think for me has come through meditation. Again, I'm a very spiritual person and I really connect to this idea that we all, you know, all this jumble and brain chatter in my brain is siftable, and that I can choose what is helpful and choose what is not. Some days it's easier than others, but when it comes to nerves, if I'm on stage ready to go on as Gretchen Wieners and I start, panicking, am I going to forget my lines? Am I going to forget my lines? I take a breath. So for me, it's about breathing and it's about accepting that I'm doing this, whether I like it or not. My choice is to run off the stage or to do it. I'm obviously not going to run off the stage, so I'm doing it, whether I like it or not, or whether I'm nervous or not. So I try to sort of accept that I am here and that I am doing the show, and I take really deep breaths. And then for me, sometimes it's if I'm shaky, I squeeze really hard. In auditions, if I feel super high in my breath because I'm nervous, I'll do push-ups right before I go in the room to just sort of like wake my body back up and say, hey, you're here, ground your feet, you're doing this, you got this, it's all going to be good, it's all going to be okay. And so the nerves kind of come and go, and now, I've done Gretchen 400 times now, so I don't get nervous on the day to day. Every once in a while, my brain tricks me, like I said, and I go, what are my lines? What am I singing? And it always ends up coming out because I know what it is, but you start to second guess yourself. It's this really weird game that you play, especially when you're in a long running show where you go, do I know what I'm doing? I'm nervous. What do I do? But another thing I like to tell young people is those nerves, I try not to think of them as nerves. I try to think of them as excited butterflies. Changing the perspective on like it being a negative. I'm nervous. This is bad. And like, ooh, I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling excitable. I'm feeling a lot of things. And as an actor, you can use those feelings for your benefit. Let's see. I saw the show last May. You were amazing. Any close calls dancing in those heels? Yes. All the time. All the time. You know what the best part about this quarantine is that my feet are getting a much needed rest. Again, for those that haven't seen the show, I have 10 pairs of shoes and they're all about this high, and they're not dance shoes. They're street heels. They're street shoes. And so my feet really take a beating in the show. And so I've definitely almost fallen. I've, rolled my ankle. Like it's tricky. And, during the rehearsal process for Mean Girls, we were able to spend a lot of time with me in my shoes on the stage. Where could my heel get caught in the track? Where am I gonna, how am I gonna exit the stage without tripping? Like all types of things to make sure that I was comfortable in the shoes because they're so challenging in the show. When you see it, when it comes to Gamage, you'll see the stilettos happening on all the plastics. It's been good though, because now I can wear heels to a press event and I like never think about it. And I used to be one of those people that was like, I can't wear heels anywhere. And now I'm like, oh, I wear heels 3 hours a day and dance and like jump in them. So I can now wear them to press events without feeling too crazy. Let's see. Have you ever made a funny mistake on stage that you had to just laugh about once you got off stage? All the time. That's what I love about live theater, right? It's just like, you never know what's going to happen. You never know what you're going to see. My funniest mishaps that have happened in Mean Girls have been for some reason, my zippers. So I have, a dresser. So each principal in Mean Girls has their own dresser because I make so many quick changes and I make so many changes. I have, I think, 10 costume changes within the show. And so she's always there with me, ready to change. It's down to a science. I exit, we take the shoes off, like everything is set up for me. And for some reason, in the first couple of months that I was doing the show, I had 3 zippers bust within the change. So her zipping them up and they break before I went on stage. And it was like within this time frame of like 3 weeks, and we could not believe that this kept happening. And the funniest one was that I had this jumper Whose house is this? And it has a zipper that's up the front. So it's the whole thing is a zipper. And she went to zip it up for the quick change and it just broke. It broke. And so my whole front of my costume was open. And I'm talking, I had to be on stage to sing in 3 seconds. So one of the ensemble members was like, take my shirt. So she threw me a shirt and I tied it around my waist. And this whole thing was open still. And I had to carry a tray of shots for this scene. So I went on stage holding it closed and then the tray in one hand singing. But I had to do a whole dance number like this. So I passed off the tray and I did the whole dance with one hand while I was closing the front of it. It was so silly. But that was probably my favorite mishap from Mean Girls. What's your favorite line to say on Mean Girls? And can you show us a Gretchen right now? How dare you? But yes, sure. I mean, my favorite line is Gretchen is definitely "You Can't Sit With Us," which I won't do right now. It's so intense. But I think that was always my favorite iconic line from the Mean Girls movie. I mean, I will say I grew up watching that movie. I probably watched it 5,000 times. And Gretchen was always my favorite. I always thought she was like hilarious and so crazy and like again, like spastic, sort of like I am. I tapped into all these like parts of my personality to book the role, including my like hyper side. And so it always made me laugh when she would like, freak out. You can't sit with us. Like that always made me laugh. And then, obviously It's So Fetch is my favorite. And people love, I like the audience loves to hear the lines that they know, though Tina Fey, she did such a great job with translating the screenplay for an onstage musical. She wrote new jokes. And you'll see when you see the show when it comes to Gamage. They're fresh jokes. And what's cool is that it's her baby and she cares so much about the show. I mean, she's the greatest boss I have ever had. She cares so deeply about her work and about her employees. And she cares so much about Mean Girls. It's really, really important to her. So she worked really hard at creating a script that worked for the stage and incorporating new jokes that she didn't get to have in the movie. And she leaves some of the movie ones in there. But she's just the greatest. But let me see if there are any other questions. We talked a little bit, I think, in the video before that didn't work. I was talking about what I was doing in quarantine. For anyone interested, I started a YouTube channel. This last year, I did a musical reading. For those of you that don't know, as actors, we're always doing readings and workshops of musicals before they get their big production. So, we're sitting around a table sometimes just reading the script. Then we'll read the script and sing the songs. Then we'll do a full-blown workshop where we're doing musical numbers. And it's all for the writers to get to develop the shows and figure out what they need to work on and how to get it to the next level. And so I was doing a reading of this musical called Viral, the musical that was written by a YouTube star. And he had asked me why no one on Broadway had a YouTube channel. And I was like, I don't actually know. And so it was one of my New Year's resolutions to start a YouTube channel. And I did that. The day that this quarantine happened. I was like, what am I going to do? Again, I'm like a super work. I need something to do. I need something to create. And also that's what brings me happiness. And so I have like a setup in my apartment for self-tapes because we do a lot of auditions from home in general before this whole thing happened as well. And so I set up the light, I set up my nice camera, and I started a YouTube channel, which you can find. My YouTube handle is Krystina Alabado, and go check it out. I'm being crazy. I talk a lot of things that we've talked about here. I talk about shows that I've been in, advice for aspiring actors, and I'm going to keep rolling those videos out. I talk about Mean Girls a lot. And it's just been a fun way to create in a time that feels like I can't because there are no auditions and there's no shows. So it's been really special for me to be able to do that. And it's been fulfilling for me. So check out my YouTube channel. It's really special to me and I act like a crazy person and it's been really fun to do. So yeah. Oh, there it is. And that is exactly the link that was just posted is one of my videos that I wrote all about Spring Awakening. So I go into depth there. I even read from my journal. I found it while I was cleaning my apartment and I was like, I should read this on YouTube. Why not? But I also do a Q&A there answering all types of other questions. But does anyone else have any other questions before I sign off? This has been really, really fun. Again, like Gamage is just such a special organization to me. And I know that everybody knows that they're lucky in ASU, but like having Colleen and all these people in Arizona doing Broadway for you is just like, it's so special, the reach that Gamage has and the reach that Colleen and everyone has set up there. It's just, I feel so proud to be from Arizona and so proud to feel connected to Gamage and to Arizona. I feel like I wouldn't be who I am without it. So, you know, I just continue supporting Gamage. And also I say that to young people, see all the shows that you can there, because you are seeing Broadway's best at Gamage. And, you know, it inspired me, just, you know, Chandler, just a girl from Chandler, to want to do this for a living. And I made it happen. It is possible for it to happen. It just comes with a lot of hard work and persistence, and patience, a lot of patience, which I'm reminding myself about during this time where I'm stuck in this tiny apartment. Again, imagine Arizonians, because there's so much space, 636 square feet, 1 bedroom, me and my husband. We haven't killed each other yet, so it's going well. And I face a brick wall also. Can you see? There's the brick wall. But I get a little light. My plants help me. So that's my situation in New York. What it's like to be so awesome. Miss Vale, my drama teacher's on here. Hi, Miss Vale. Krystina Vale was my high school drama teacher at Hamilton. She still teaches drama at Hamilton. And she knows that I think she's the literal greatest. And she like totally pushed me to do this and made me feel like I was good enough and could do it. Miss Vale, Krystina Vale. I can never not call you Miss Vale, even though your name is the same as mine, Krystina. But I cannot call you Krystina. That's so weird. You're Miss Vale to me forever. Anyway, anything else before I go? This has been wonderful. Again, stay safe. And as I continue telling my students and on my YouTube channel and on my Instagram, I'm very active on Instagram if anyone wants to follow along with what I'm doing during this COVID-19 crisis. I am posting all the time on Instagram. My handle is @Krystina Alabado, and I'm posting all the dinners that me and my husband are cooking and all these links to YouTube and all my singing videos that I'm trying to keep myself active during. But anytime anyone, you know, has any questions about the business or anything, just let me know. But I love you all, and thank you so much for having me, Gamage. I love Gamage, and I love Arizona, and I miss it. Wish I was there. Maybe soon. Anyway, goodbye, everybody. Stay safe and keep creating, and I'll see ya.